Anyway, the rise and fall of gaming journalism. You want to know what's funny is I have this one. I do too. Yeah, no, I mean, like, Nintendo Power. Like, I used to be so in on that. Like, I have all the old Nintendo Power. I never got rid of any of them.
Gaming journalism isn't what it once was.
No, it's not.
In fact, just mentioning the words gaming journalism these days seems to only provoke negative reactions.
Nobody likes them.
This is how badly these companies have damaged their own reputation.
Yeah.
Almost every week, I see the same sentence pop up somewhere online that says, remember, you don't hate gaming journalists enough.
It's bad.
Whether it's in the comment section on a YouTube video, or a Facebook or Instagram post, or even on X, gamers seem to be unified in this thought across the internet. It's a clear sign.
I don't think anybody likes gaming journalism anymore. Like, even the gaming journalists don't like themselves. Just read their Twitter bios if you think they do.
That gamers genuinely wouldn't mind if the majority of gaming journalism outlets just disappeared at this point.
They have been. Yeah, they're done.
Gamers used to love the likes of IGN, for example, because it felt like they were one of us. But now to see them lay off a lot more of their staff this month has sparked some interesting reactions online.
Dude, people, that's one of my favorite things, is that when layoffs happen at a company that people don't like, everybody is like spamming like W. They're like, yes, finally, fire them all.
A large part of the gaming community celebrated this as if this result is a form of justice, whereas another portion of the gaming community were saddened by the idea that the IGN they once loved has allowed itself to fall this far. So how did we get here? How is it that gaming journalists, much like many AAA gaming companies, have become so disconnected from their audience that it's come to this? Let's rewind for a second.
It's super easy. How? I mean, they allowed people that had agendas to write things. It's the same thing that's happened to mainstream journalism. I think the reason why it's more pervasive and it's more identified in gaming is because it's such a microcosm of people that are hyper fixated on it. So you have like a very high degree of competency and awareness, and that causes people to think and like realize the errors and the sloppiness because it's niche, right? And so here's the thing. I said this before. How many times have you read an article or something like that in a mainstream publication and it turned out that it's total bullshit because you're an expert in that field?
What a lot of us remember as the golden age of gaming journalism.
Yeah,
back
the
then,
movies,
gaming
or the,
magazines like Nintendo Power, PC Gamer, and Game Informer weren't just magazines.
Yep.
They were a gateway into the world we loved.
Well, they were, dude, this was gaming culture. Like, these magazines were gaming culture themselves.
This unique way of connecting with us, speaking a language that every gamer just understood. Yeah, you get like the disc with it. With the, This was especially important at the time because of how niche gaming was.
Look at that, bro. Damn, bro, he is ready.
In most households. I'll never forget those moments when my mom would arrive back from her monthly grocery shop. I'd race to the car because I knew she'd picked up a copy of either the PC format or the NAG magazine for me.
See, for me, it was, I would go to, do you guys remember Albertsons? Like, it was a grocery store, a grocery chain. And I remember we would walk into Albertsons and there'd be like the magazine racks. And like halfway through, or like while my mom was waiting in the checkout line, I would go and sit down and read the gaming magazines. Yeah, I would sit down in front of the magazine section and read them.
Or some African variants of gaming magazines. It was such a small thing, but my mom knew that it made me happy for the rest of the week. I was hooked on those magazines. Over time, I'd even figure out which of the writers had the same taste in games as me, and I'd always look out for their names in these magazines.
I never did that.
Gaming journalists used to deliver an amazing experience that a lot of us will always remember. When the internet took over, sites like
I don't even think that it was gaming journalists. I think that it was just like the time whenever you were a kid, and it was just like a innocent hobby that just had people writing about it, that people just really liked the content. It was basically like reading Nintendo Power as a kid in the 90s.
GameSpot, and GameFAQs kept the energy alive. They weren't just about reviews and news, they were about community. Forums were always buzzing with debates, walkthroughs, and theories. Early reviews felt like it was simply gamers talking to gamers, because that's exactly what it was. It wasn't just about the games, it was about the culture. That era
it went so hard that I mean, the way that a lot of the WoW devs got hired is they were people that complained about EverQuest. And Blizzard saw that and they said, well, God, these guys really don't fucking like the game. They really think they can do it better? Well, let's find out. And then they got hired. Jeff Kaplan, I think, is a good example of that.
Was about celebrating games. Big events like E3 felt magical, where developers, journalists, and players came together to share in the excitement of announcements and reveals. It was a time when the line between fans and journalists was blurred, because at the end of the day, journalists were gamers too. But, like all golden ages, it didn't last forever. By the 2010s, cracks started to show. Traffic became the priority and sensationalism took over.
Yeah.
Why? Because ad revenue now relied on clicks. And when your business model depends on clicks, trust and quality often disappear. News, reviews, and entertainment were no longer the product. You and I became the product.
I think this is a problem with like all types of media, is that when you get paid by views, there's going to be a, like, every type of monetization has a dark side, or it has like a negative outcome as well. But I think that really, like, so when gaming journalism, and I'm sure he's going to say this, Gamergate killed gaming journalism. That's what it was. And if you look at the graphs of like all these websites, you'll see that that's exactly what happened. Is that they were still growing until like Gamergate. That was the end of it.
Majority of news outlets, not just gaming journalists, quickly learned that sensationalism equals profit. And where there's sensationalism, there is disconnect. It wasn't just clickbait though. There was also this new phenomenon of first come, first served. Instead of publishing a monthly magazine where journalists could spend more time refining and crafting something thought-provoking and entertaining, a never-ending rat race began. Companies now competed to get previews, reviews, and news out faster than the competition. Articles started feeling rushed, and reviews...
This is something that happened with YouTube as well. Like, how many of you guys remember, or you've played a game where people try to get guides out for new content as soon as possible, and they do it at the cost of the content itself? So like the guide will come out, but it'll be really shitty, or it won't be complete because it won't be ready, but like the title says that it's the full complete thing. Yeah, exactly right. And so that's a huge issue.
Becoming increasingly more disconnected from gamers. It was clear that it didn't feel like it was gamers talking to gamers anymore.
Yeah.
Now, a lot of people have grown so tired of this. Just look at the recent reviews around Concord. Self-proclaimed critics gave this game a 7 out of 10 or even an 8 out of 10, while literally the entire gaming community rejected this game into oblivion. Saying these reviews felt out of touch is an understatement. There is so obviously a disconnect between these journalists and actual gamers.
You are who I think you are. You should give me another chance.
I don't think we're alike at all.
Then there's the issue of access journalism. Game publishers started controlling the narrative more aggressively, using embargoes and restrictions to shape coverage. If a journalist criticized a game, they risked losing early access or exclusives in the future. And when you're in a state of competing for clicks, losing that access can be devastating for your company. So do you tell the truth and risk backlash from the publishers? Or do you play it safe and lose credibility with your readers?
Yeah.
Definitely not an easy decision.
Oh, look at this. It's me. And so I think that it's also, you have, like, there's definitely pressure from publishers and developers. And I think also here's another really big issue, is that if you're personal friends with publishers and developers and the people that work in the industry, you're going to just passively give them more leeway and more credibility because you know them personally. And so you're seeing it from their perspective, but that might not be a perspective that the rest of the audience sees.
Connect has definitely brought a major shift over the years. As trust in traditional outlets faded, a lot of gamers turned to the reviews and opinions of YouTubers. Creators like Angry Joe and the amazing Total Biscuit felt authentic. They didn't need publisher approval, and they weren't afraid to tell it like it is. If a game was broken, they'd call it out. If it was great, you can tell their praise was genuine.
Like, this probably is like probably one of the greatest games I ever played in my whole life. It's just so good. Elden Ring is a top 10 of all time generational game. It's not even a question. It's so good, man. Stop, man, stop. I hate this game, bro.
Now, this raises a big question. Why do companies like IGN still have an audience?
Okay.
If you've watched my previous videos, you would know that I'm just a casual gamer.
Yeah.
I don't always have time to sit down and actually play games, let alone dive into the drama around gaming journalism. So, let's say I see a game advertised from a franchise I loved as a kid or teenager.
You're gonna
or
play
from a
it,
company
yeah.
I used to praise and trust. Naturally, I would want to go where I've always gone for insight on these games. IGN, PC Gamer, or Game Informer. And honestly, most
Kotaku
casual
or
gamers
Polygon,
would probably
yeah.
stop their research right there. How do I know this? Because most of my friends, who are dads, husbands, accountants, financial advisors, tradesmen, and just generally busy guys, still read and trust IGN. Simply because they always have. Although the funny
IGN, I will say, is probably the most favorable. Like, of all of the different publications, I think IGN is the least biased, but I do think that they're extremely biased as well. I think Black Myth Wukong is a great example of that. But they are the best bad one.
thing is, some of them have actually now stopped reading
It's my
IGN
opinion.
because of what happened with Dragon Age: The Veil God. I have a good friend who grew up loving the Dragon Age series. Years later, a new sequel, The Veil God, was announced, and he got pretty excited. Ahead of launch, he checks IGN's reviews and he sees a 9 out of 10. Now, bear in mind, he does not keep up with the politics behind any of this stuff because he is simply a very busy guy. Now,
this is the thing too, is that he's right about this, is that you get the normies who get hoodwinked by this kind of stuff. Because like they're like, this guy is, you know, like we said, like an accountant, right? Like he's not thinking, he's not watching, you know, like, oh, well, they're giving this game, like, there's a non-binary character in the game. They're not even thinking about that, right?
this confirms his excitement. There are no warnings, no caveats, just another Dragon Age with a 9 out of 10 from IGN.
Of course.
So the game launches, and he finally gets to play it. And he is obviously blindsided. The game does not live up to its predecessors. It even feels like the developers sacrificed the gritty story writing of the franchise just to push a progressive agenda in a very heavy-handed, cringeworthy way.
Oh, I'm non-binary.
And IGN gave it a higher review score than any of the previous titles. A lot of these big outlets have obviously let people down, and more gamers are starting to look elsewhere for honest opinions. So where does that leave us? Is gaming journalism gonna eventually disappear?
They are an endangered species right now. They're like the white rhinos. There's like 7 of them left. And so what's happening is that there's almost no gaming journalism outlets that are left now. And if you think about the amount of people that are writing articles for these websites, it's less than 100 people probably at this point. Like it's basically dead.
I don't think it will, but I do believe gamers are finally holding these companies accountable. I do believe as gaming journalism has declined, we have definitely seen a rise in trusted YouTubers and indie creators who are doing something traditional outlets struggle with. They embrace the difficult conversations around gaming, and a lot of them do it well. Let's face it, games aren't a one-size-fits-all. What I love about a game might be what you hate about it, and that's fine. Independent creators, when they rave about a game, it feels like a recommendation from a fellow gamer, not some detached, objective critic. And that honesty, it resonates. On top of that, creators build...
Well, also, there it is. Also, it's easier, like IGN has a bunch of people writing articles for them. So like you don't really have like one definitive viewpoint that you're getting out of IGN. Because, or Kotaku or any of these other websites, because they just have like, there's some people that write that think this about a game, other people that write that think that about a game. But like with a individual like myself or, you know, any other like Scale Up or something like that, you're getting really the opinion of one consistent person. So like, for example, like the person who writes the review for Dragon Age Veilguard might also write a review and have totally different criteria than somebody else for the game for that audience. Do you see kind of what I'm saying? And so like following an individual creator is much easier to do than following an individual writer.
Communities. They're in the comments, hosting live streams, and engaging with their audience in ways traditional outlets just don't anymore. That direct connection is a big reason why so many gamers are turning to independent content creators for their reviews and insights. So, what does the future of gaming journalism look like? The truth is, it's unclear, but one thing is for sure, the old model of sensationalism, clickbait headlines, and ignoring what the audience really cares about is fading fast. Tired of feeling like we're being sold something that is not genuine. We want transparency, we want honesty, and we want to feel connected to the people reviewing our favorite games. As a gamer, I have to say the worst thing I've seen gaming...
Hot take, gamers are the problem with gaming.
journalists do is turn on the core audience and paint us as villains. Instead of journalists do,
gamers are terrible people and we should stop being okay with it. Okay.
Turn
and
on
this
the core
website is called The Gamer.
And paint us as villains. Instead of engaging with the community, some
not sure if my 15 layers meant that gamers are bad people.
Journalists have chosen to throw accusations at gamers, stating we are the problem with the gaming industry. Gaming journalism won't disappear, but it will have to evolve. The outlets that survive will be the ones that understand the shift and reconnect with their audience. It's not just about getting the first scoop anymore. It's about providing real, thoughtful coverage that respects the community and acknowledges the diverse opinions within it. It's got to the point that when outlets like PC Gamer might actually produce thoughtful content that raises valid points, no one cares anymore. They automatically face backlash from the internet due to the reputation they've built over time. The recent article on Path of Exile 2 was a prime example of this. Readers see the headline and they immediately assume it's a bad article. But this is a completely self-induced problem. And this is the consequences. The rise of independent creators and YouTubers shows us what gaming journalism could become. More personal, more honest, and more connected to the audience. These creators...
Well, it's also more direct, and it's a better medium too. Like, you don't have a lot of people that are writing articles individually either. You have mainly people that are creating YouTube videos because it's a better medium.
Are giving a voice to the gamers, and they are filling a gap left by the big outlets that became more concerned with clicks than delivering real value. It's a new era, and if traditional outlets want to stay relevant, they'll need to adapt or risk being left behind. As for gamers, we're starting to take control. We're demanding better, and most importantly, we're holding these companies accountable. Thank you everyone for watching, and a very special thank you to my Patreons. If you're keen to look into my Patreon, do check the link in the description below. I'm really enjoying building this community with all of you.
Yep, there it is. I think that was a great video. Citizen journalism is far more popular and powerful. Yeah, I think that's definitely true. And like, you have a lot of the, so like, and this is what's happened with publishing in general in a lot of different fields, is that the entire industry of publishing is a lot smaller now because you don't need a printing press. You don't need a massive editorial board or anything like that. And so a person with a message can directly give that message to the public, right? And like, that's why, like, you know, for example, on Twitter, you know, Elon Musk is always talking about citizen journalism. And I think that's actually what people do want. They want way more citizen journalism because they don't trust any of the mainstream media. I think that a lot of people, like even conservatives, they might watch Fox, but I don't think they really trust Fox that much more than they trust like CNN. They just think Fox is the best worst thing, basically, right? And so people still have a distrust for mainstream media. It's just that that's the best that they can have.